you would, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Taelor Conley Marcel. I'm originally from the San Francisco Bay Area. Been living in Charlotte for the past 10 years and focusing on a corporate career and entrepreneurship and living life.
Oh my goodness, I love it. I love it. Before Charlotte, where were you at?
Prior to Charlotte, I was living in Washington, D.C. I was attending Georgetown University, and I moved down to Charlotte for a career opportunity right after college.
Okay, very nice, very nice. And where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Hayward, California. I was born in Castro Valley, California, which is in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I've also lived in Hazelhurst, Mississippi during my youth. So,
Now you said that you're in corporate and entrepreneurship.
yes.
Wow. So give us some tidbits on that. How did you get into both?
Yeah, so during like my junior year in college, I was just really trying to figure out what I wanted to do career-wise. I majored in sociology and women and gender studies, but I knew I didn't want to go straight into nonprofit work, so I ended up being a part of a program called Management Leadership for Tomorrow that introduced me to Fortune 500 companies. And so I got my first internship with Procter & Gamble in the consumer product goods industry. And from there, I have just continued to grow within that industry. And that's also led me to have kind of a passion and love for consumer product goods, which is what I'm about to launch, a lemonade brand.
You're about to launch. Wow. Okay. So, if you will, simplify consumer goods. What exactly are consumer goods for those who just may not even understand?
Yeah, so consumer product goods are everything you will find in your grocery store, at your favorite clothing store. There's different sides of the industry, but literally every object that you're purchasing, any piece of merchandise is a consumer product good. I personally work in like the grocery retail side of the business, so throughout my career, I've managed everything from like Metamucil and Pantene to Tampax tampons, and I'm currently working with a coffee brand called Illy Cafe.
Amazing. So how did you land on lemonade?
So it really ties into different business ventures that I've done. I have partnered with different business partners, and one of them was a food truck that I had here in Charlotte called the Feathered Fin. And we had a lemonade that we sold on the truck that resonated with our customers. My business partner is a chef, and he had made other flavors that resonated with his clientele. And so once we saw that we had just a great product, we wanted to scale that for commercial resale so that we could be in grocery stores. And with my knowledge about the consumer product goods industry, his knowledge about culinary side, creating flavor profiles, things like that, we decided to jump right into it and launch this brand called Wiley.
Wow, that is awesome. You mentioned flavor profiles, and real quick shout out, I appreciate you having me over for your birthday party, capturing some great footage of an amazing soiree. Real quick, let's shout out the chef. That food was really
Yeah,
amazing.
shout out Chef Francois, Charlotte. Honestly, he travels everywhere. We've done weddings in San Francisco together before. You know, we've gone all over the U.S. But yeah, super dope. I think finding a business partner that has a different skill set from you is imperative, and that's what I've learned on my journey. And so it's just great to have his expertise in one side of the business and mine in another.
Already dropping gems without me asking. I love that. So y'all heard that coast to coast. If you have culinary needs, tap in, please. If you will, speak more to that. What have been some other learned lessons, things that you found to be advantageous in hindsight, really just other parts of your experience and journey as far as entrepreneurship is concerned?
I would say my biggest thing is being a risk taker. You know, calculated risk is what's going to get you to that next level. I'd also say just knowing when to let things go. I think sometimes people start businesses and they're like, you know, a year in, 2 years in, well, I don't want to look like I gave up. You know, I don't want the perception to be that I was unsuccessful. I mean, hey, like if you look at any of these corporations, you look at the top entrepreneurs online, they've had so many business ventures. Knowing when to walk away is valuable as hell. And I think I've learned that throughout my process, even when it comes to funding, you know, knowing when is enough that you're putting into a business, you know, is that business scalable? I'm really defining what you want, right? So if you want a business that, you know, it's going to pay my bills every month and this is what I want to just show up and do every day, I don't want to have a different job, that looks completely different from saying, hey, like, I want to create a multi-million-dollar brand that another corporation is going to buy one day. Really identifying, like, what your end goal is important, and that'll help you maneuver through the process of growing your business.
Wow, that's so profound. And you say it so fluently. What are some of the signs that a business is failing, an idea is failing, a time that, hey, I need to get up out of there?
For me, it was really listening to consumers and really understanding kind of the feedback. So my first business venture was a hair care company called Gaia. I launched it because, you know, I love the beauty industry. I love getting my hair done, and people always complimented me on that. Like, where did you get your hair extensions from? Who does your hair? And so I'm like, hey, like, I'm giving away all this free information all the time. Why not sell the product and be able to educate people? Well, the issue with that is that I don't have a background whatsoever in hair. I don't do hair. Like, all I can really go off of is the product and marketing. And granted, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs are successful at it. For me, it didn't really work that way. You know, I found people were more trusting of beauticians, hairstylists who sold product, because then that person can, you know, install it and do their hair. So when I just consistently got kind of like that feedback and saw that, you know, my product wasn't moving in the way that it was, I was over investing in marketing and I still wasn't getting that traction. I just knew that that was kind of the end of the road for me, and I was happy to kind of walk away and figure out what's next.
Something that you mentioned seemed to boil down to more of an awareness of self, which was identifying what kind of business that you want. If you want to have a job or a role where you're coming in every day and this is what pays my bills, versus building that multi-million-dollar company. Can you give me one or two contrasting differences between the two? I think sometimes people feel as if they're creating the multi-million-dollar business, when in reality they're doing the work to pay their bills.
Right.
That makes sense.
So for me, so this is just my personal opinion, right? Like, I look at service-related businesses and I'm like, that's a business that's gonna pay your bills. If you're just showing up every day, say you are a hairstylist, right? You're showing up every day, you're doing hair, you have to be there. If you take a day off, you're not making money. Something like that is for the entrepreneur who doesn't want to have a job, but is so fulfilled with having their own business that they're running every single day and showing up. For me, I've been spoiled, I'll say that. Like, working in consumer product goods and working on the sales side, I work from home, right? So I've gotten used to that, like being able to work at kind of like flexible times and hours, and, you know, I don't have to show up at a specific location to make money. That's the type of business that I wanted to build for myself. And when you think about scalable, so say if you're gonna create a business and you want angel investors to come and invest in it, they're gonna say, you know, how are you gonna scale this business? How, like, where's the ROI gonna be at? A lot of times they steer away from service related only if you don't have a master plan about expanding locations, you know, expanding into different states. You can start, say, a massage business and have multiple locations all around the country. It's scalable, right? Is that what you want to do? And I think that's the question. When I look at product-based businesses, it's, in my opinion, way more scalable because you can be on e-commerce platforms, you can be in stores. Like, there's kind of no end game to where your product can be. And frankly, I like to make money while I sleep. So
100%. I love that idea. You mentioned something. I just want to be very clear about it, actually. I don't know if you're spoiled or if you spoil yourself. I think the fact that you worked for it, right, and then that gives you the ability to be in the role to be spoiled, is, to me, you're spoiling yourself, because I don't want anyone to get anything misconstrued. Not that you're concerned about any of that, by the way. Yeah. Knowing that you're an entrepreneur, knowing that you have your own vision and things that you want, you know, desire to come to fruition, what gives you the patience to still work with other companies, to still be in corporate, those types of things?
For me, I would definitely say financial. You know, obviously I have bills to pay, and, you know, that piece, like, I don't want to pour everything I have into a brand and it is unsuccessful, and I'm wondering, like, how am I going to pay my bills day to day? So, still showing up for work. I need that check. But also, I learned so much on the job. Everything that I'm able to implement with my own brand is learned. And so I look at it as like I'm showing up to work every day to be a master at what I'm doing, and my role at a corporation is giving me the opportunities to step into rooms with executives, to step into rooms with category managers that I'll have to meet with my own brand. And so that is so valuable, and I'm getting paid to learn, so, and quite frankly, like, it has also been a goal of mine to climb the corporate ladder. I'm at director level right now. I would love to one day be a VP or, even higher than that if that's where my journey leads. But it's been fun being in both. It's been very rewarding to find success in corporate and in entrepreneurship.
I love where the two intersect for you. Where does that drive and ambition come from?
It comes, I would say, honestly, like, it does come from within. I was never kind of that kid that had to be pushed to go to school or to do their homework. Like, it just innately came to me. But I think that was based on who I was surrounded by, too, right? My mom is an entrepreneur. She had a very successful career in real estate, and seeing her, like, have her own company, like, she was the only parent that I knew that didn't go to an office every day. We had so much flexibility. She could be, the president of the PTA and dedicate all her time to, like, me, even as a single parent. I just saw, like, how her hard work paid off. So I think being surrounded by that just was extremely influential, and then, just other people within, like, my community, within my tribe, who helped raise me were all extremely hardworking women. So great examples.
What's the difference between Oakland and Mississippi?
So, as you can imagine, they're drastically different culturally. Drastically different. But both experiences really create, like, who I am as a person. So, when I look at Mississippi, there's a lot of poverty in Mississippi. There's not a lot of opportunities. My family my family's from a very, like, rural area called Hazelhurst, and I saw, like, members of my family, members of my community work extremely, extremely hard, but not kind of, like, really make it out, and then in contrast, growing up in the Bay Area around Silicon Valley and, growing up in the hills and seeing all of this money, it's inspiring. How can you not be inspired? How can you not strive to, like, accomplish what everyone else has accomplished, to live that life? Hell, living in California alone is an accomplishment, how expensive it is.
Facts.
But I also appreciate California because I grew up in such a very, like, culturally diverse community. And it's so funny now being an adult. It's like, you don't see color. Like, it's like, in a more, I guess, educated way of saying it, like, I didn't necessarily see color, but I saw culture, right? I was surrounded by so many different things that allow my mind to be open. Whereas if I would have grew up 100% in Mississippi, I wouldn't have had that, because it's still very, like, black and white, and you still deal with a lot more, like, upfront, in your face racism than you do having covert situations happen on the West Coast. So just kind of gaining those experiences and seeing two completely different ways of life, like, it just inspired me to kind of mesh everything together and still have that, like, Southern, like, home vibe and spirit, but that, like, kick-ass, I'm gonna change the world kind of character that you see in the Bay Area.
At times, societally, it's hard to be in between. Yet you have your literal, in real time, your real life. You know what I'm saying? What was that like, being in D.C., being this driven and ambitious young black woman?
Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting. So where you go to college in DC is gonna shape
Okay, cool.
your
okay.
experience,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
So, like, being in the DMV, I feel like some people have one, like, extremely different experience versus somebody going to a completely different school. But with that being said, again, it was so culturally diverse that you can go to any part of the city and kind of find what you're looking for. You can find your niche. You can find community. And that's kind of what I did. Granted, I spent a lot of time at Georgetown, like kind of in the Georgetown bubble. So people were like, oh, did you go to Howard a lot when you were there? And I'm like, no, I could probably count on one hand how many times I went to Howard. Like, granted, looking back, I wish I would have did more of that and kind of been more immersed in like that HBCU culture. But you kind of spoke when you asked the question, you know, I'm a Delta, so I pledged Delta, New Alpha, Springton, at Georgetown.
Shout out to the Deltas.
Yes. But it was different because in many ways, I didn't feel as accepted as a Delta when you have Alpha chapter at Howard, right?
Yes.
It's like, are you really real? And I'm like, I promise, like, I earned these letters, okay? Like, I'm a Delta too, accept me. So that was one experience where I'm like, I don't know if I really belong, you know. Am I in this too white of a space to still be black? You know, I kind of experienced that, but I had a ball in D.C. I'll just say that. Look, we had a ball.
Something that I know about you is that you love to travel. When did you start traveling, like, out of the country?
So my first time traveling out of the country was my junior year in college. So that was, 2011. And I went to London on spring break to see one of my line sisters. Wow. So that was my first trip. I was really broke, though.
Well, thank you for your transparency. That's not the case these days. But so your line sister was already in London?
Yeah, she was studying abroad.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Since then, how many countries have you been to?
So I have been to 28 countries as of today. It should have been more, though, because COVID hit. I was supposed to go to Singapore and Bali in April 2020 because I had this 30 by 30 checklist. So my 30th birthday, I was going to hit my 30th country, have a little passport post. Like, I was so ready. And then COVID just obviously messed all that up. But I'm going to get back on it.
Darn pandemic, I tell you. Right. Top 3 or top 5 places you've traveled to. And a brief reasoning as to why those are your places.
Okay, well, let's do top 3.
Okay.
So, I would say Costa Rica, Thailand, and Dubai. Okay. So, I'll start with the third, Dubai. Crazy scenario, probably around 2015. Yeah, it was my 25th birthday, so 2015. Well, technically, it was Christmas of 2014. Back then, used to catch random flight glitches. And
True that, yeah.
Etihad Airways had a flight glitch that spread like wildfire amongst the black community. Like, I don't know how everybody just got this notice about this flight glitch. We literally got $250 tickets, round-trip tickets to Dubai that they honored. Wow. When I tell you there were hundreds of, like, professional blacks in Dubai during that time period, like, and I say professional blacks because a lot of people were, like, corporate America. Like, you know, it just kind of got spread through a certain community of people. But yeah, to say that I went all the way to Dubai for $250, like, and Dubai is like an amazing place.
No standby.
No standby. I had a confirmed seat, y'all. Confirmed seat. But it's super dope, like so luxurious. I want to go back. So that's my third place. Second would be Thailand, and it was my best friend Ariel, my cousin Rosin, and I who went to Thailand. It was actually Rosin's first international trip, so that kind of awesome. Yeah, stands out to me. I got my cousin out the country.
Yeah. Real generational wealth.
Yes. But I love Thailand because we took like a week and a half to explore the country and went to 3 very different regions. So we started in Bangkok, then went to Chiang Mai, which is more of like countryside, like the mountains.
Mountain region.
And then we left there and went to Phuket, which is like the island area. And each like region of the country was just so dope. Like, I got so much from being there. I feel like I got such a chance to like self-reflect. It's so peaceful. The people are amazing. You know, we went to just so many different like cultural like monuments there and centers, and we did grocery shopping, like in their outdoor markets. We took cooking classes. Like, it was just such an amazing experience that I would love to go back there too. Highly recommend. And then my number one is Costa Rica. And that's just the vibes. Like, I would literally move to Costa Rica, which is a goal of mine. But the people there are just so amazing. And one thing you'll hear if you go to Costa Rica is Pura Vida. And it's just kind of a phrase about just live life, right? And that's another place where I have so much time to just self-reflect and just appreciate my journey.
Are you always inclusive of other people in your thoughts?
For sure. For sure. And I think, you know, I'm an only child. And so I was always that kid that yearned for like brothers and sisters and community. And my tribe is important, right? Like, no matter how independent you are, you know, you could be a self-starter, you could be all these things, but like your network, your tribe, like the people that you can fall back on, is everything. And so when I look at travel, like majority of my trips have been with groups of friends, you know, loved ones. I was able to pull a cousins trip together and get all of my cousins to Puerto Rico for like their first trip out of the continental U.S.
Wow.
And so if you ask people, like, I feel like a lot of people will say, like, yeah, Taylor introduced me to travel, because I like to share that with others because it's so valuable. What you see every day, like, can motivate you to be greater. Like, it's inspiration you find on these trips. It's time to just sit back and say, wow, like, look how far I've come to be able to be in this other country and experience this. And so I just love sharing that with other people.
Draws of inspiration are conceptual, not something you're forcing on someone, but really opening someone's eyes to greater experience, greater perspective, and just greater senses of culture. Is there anyone who inspires and motivates you?
My mom, definitely. She's probably my biggest inspiration. Love her to death, my best friend. Outside of my mom, I would just say, like, there's just so many people. Like, there's so many people in my personal network. Like, I tend to kind of draw inspiration from people that I personally know and see and, like, truly understand what they've gone through to get to where they are. And so I can get on LinkedIn and just see somebody, like, post about a new career, you know, a new, I guess, like, anything that they've, like, recently won on, whether that's getting a new job or, like, you know, finishing a project or something. Like, that truly inspires me. I've never been one that, like, really was inspired by, like, celebrities or, like, you know, people like that.
Do you find that you're a rarity or an anomaly or is not as common as from a thought process, as far as approach to life, all those things? Do you find that, or within the spaces that you're in, do you find comfort because that's everything that you're speaking about is pretty much normalized?
No, I definitely feel like a unicorn in a lot of spaces. And that, you know, I guess just top level, especially from a corporate standpoint, you know, oftentimes being like the only Black woman in a room. I know that's a shared experience with a lot of other Black professionals. But even deeper than that, like within our own community, right? Like, I feel like I kind of can enter a lot of different spaces, unique spaces. So I can thrive in a very corporate, tight, you know, buttoned up space, but then I can thrive in a very lax, like, hey, I can meet you in the hood, like, and still fit in and feel comfortable. Or I can be a part of, like, the baddies group and, like, be on the party scene and be, like, you know, partying with your favorite celebrities. That piece is, like, I feel like it makes me different personality-wise, being able to thrive in very different environments. But I love it. I mean, I guess it's just kind of my personality.
100%. Not that you live your life based upon the perceptions of other people. How do you desire to be perceived? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, super fair. And I think about that a lot, especially posting on social media. You know, social media has become such a big part of our society. And I
Absolutely.
think if you're not thinking about your brand consistently and how you want people to perceive you, then, like, you're lost in a sense. You know, some people can do it great, like that, just I don't care mentality, and it works for them. For a majority of us, it does not, right? And so I'm always conflicted about like posting bikini pictures and posting things with curse words and stuff like that, because I know that I'm tied to a corporation. I'm tied to a brand of professionalism. Like, I want to be that person as well. And so finding that balance of like, what do I share? What don't I share? Because I don't want someone to like come to my social media page and walk away with the wrong perception and maybe, you know, don't want to do business with me. Or on the other hand, like have people come and like, oh, I don't really want to be her friend, or I don't want to be like associated with her because she's too like prude, or, you know, anything like that. So it's kind of finding that balance, and it's a struggle daily, honestly.
I appreciate that. You spoke to Instagram, and I love that you spoke to Instagram and what it is before your approach to Instagram, because that's what's really important. It's not our job to cater to that. However, as you mentioned, if you're not concerned with your brand, your own image, that's why we have NIL these days, right? Name, image, and likeness.
Right.
For college athletes, shout out to that. I mean, yeah, what exactly are we doing? What are some ways that you make sure that you're not lost in the sauce and everything that you're doing is intentional and moving forward to fortify your brand?
I oftentimes ask like other people, like, hey, you know, I posted this or I said this, like, how did you perceive that? You know, if you didn't really know who I am, what would you think? And I've gotten pretty good feedback that has kind of helped guide me either to be like, okay, that was a little risky, or hey, you know, I'm showing my authentic self and people enjoy that, right? I think just getting that feedback and being open to it without being defensive is important. So yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest thing I think about when it comes to my personal brand.
What makes you happy? What makes you smile?
What makes me happy? Just like, I think when people around me are happy. I feed off of energy. Like, I'm a very empathetic person. So I'm a protector too. Like, I want to be there. I want to save the day for you. Like, I want to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish or get over what obstacle. I want to be that safe space for other people. And it makes me happy when I know that I'm like being that person that they need. And then when I'm not giving, I just kind of feel like I like to tap into nature. I like to be outside. Like, I just love to connect. Like, I think when you're in that open space, you can really like sit and think, and your thoughts are so important, right? Like positive self-talk. I tell myself all the time, the voice that I'm gonna hear the most for my entire life is my own. It's all here. So taking those moments to kind of dive into like what you're really feeling and thinking, and, you know, being able to journal about that, or whatever, you know, whatever your outlet is, that's important to me, and that's what makes me happy.
And as much as it's not easy to formulate a question for you that's next, I love how one thing segues into the next. And so what the question I had looming was, you have a self-care routine, yeah? What does self-care look like for you?
So self-care looks like accountability. So, and I'll go deeper into that.
Yes,
so,
please. That's great.
So first off, shout out to Dustin Douglas.
Okay.
Dustin and I went to Georgetown together, and we connected probably about 6 months ago on being accountability partners for each other. And that stemmed from everything from like personal to professional. And so we both made a list of like things that we want to tackle every single week that are kind of things that we don't easily get done, that we want to hold ourselves accountable and each other accountable for. That self-care for me looked like journaling and reading every day. I have a passion for leisure reading that I just kind of let slip away. And that's wasting time on my phone, doing stuff, and just not carving out the time, making excuses. Journaling to be able to put my thoughts on paper. Like, you can think about something all day long, but sometimes you need that release. And if you don't want to call somebody and discuss it, like, being able to journal and look back and reflect on where you've been has been important to me. The other thing is, like, I'm big on health. I went through a back surgery a year and a half ago that altered, I would say, everything about me. It gave me a different appreciation for life, because one day I felt like I was never going to walk again. And having that fear and not knowing 100% like where I would end up after physical therapy and surgery and stuff, it made me appreciate my body even more than I had appreciated it before. Especially when something's taken away from you that you don't even think about. We all just get up and walk, right?
Right.
You know, for those of us who don't have any limited abilities. So I wanted to be more intentional about taking care of myself. So that's like water intake. I'm getting enough water every day. You know, am I meal tracking? Am I knowing what I'm putting in my body? Am I meal prepping? Not A, spending a lot of money outside the house. Right. But B, truly caring about the ingredients and like what you're putting, you know, inside your body. And so that was important. And then finally, it was holding myself accountable for chasing my own dreams. You know, a lot of us who play that corporate and entrepreneurial side, we get caught up in you know, what we're making in corporate America and being able to clock out at a certain time and just get back to life. And I have a dream that's bigger than that, and I feel like I'll fail myself if I don't chase that dream. So it's like making sure that I'm showing up for Taylor from a professional standpoint as well.
When we talked about your happiness, you talked about showing up for your friends and making sure that, you know, you can hold space for them in ways that they need, those types of things. Shout out to Dustin. That's really dope from an accountability standpoint. Do you require the people around you to show up in the same way that you show up for them?
No, I definitely won't require it. You know, if it happens naturally, I welcome it, right? But I recently had a conversation with one of my best friends about not feeling seen. And I know she loves me. She cares for me. I naturally am the strong friend, you know? And anybody who's a strong friend, you know, sometimes it feels like you have to just muster through it. You know, you're the person that figures it out. You're the person that everyone kind of turns to. And so you have to believe in yourself enough to get over what you're getting over. And I feel like at times I'm not as forthcoming or transparent about how I truly feel about certain things because I'm like, Taylor, you'll get over this. It's not the end of the world. Like, I'll put my feelings aside. But in having that conversation with her, it gave me the room to be an emotional friend for that day, to be the person like, look, like, I need you to show up for me in this way. And she was receptive for that. And I think that's the importance of having like strong friendships and people who are at least willing to hear and truly understand where you're coming from. And as long as they're willing to adjust and, you know, be there for me, then I'm cool with that. But I definitely don't think it's a requirement, you know.
I love that. It allows people to show up as their genuine self and really offer what it is that they have to truly offer.
Right.
When not being seen, what does that look like for you?
I would say, you know, sometimes it's like people closest to you will just know if something's wrong with you, right? Like,
sure,
you don't even have to come out and say it, but they know, you know. In that particular moment, in the situation that she and I faced, it was just that. Like, you know me, so you should know, like, I wanted her to feel the energy. I don't place all the blame on it because I'm an adult, so I should be able to, you know, voice exactly how I feel, you know, and that was something we discussed as well. But even if it's an unsaid thing, being seen in all the nonverbal ways, and then verbally, you know, if I am expressing directly how I feel, what happens after that? Like, are you showing up in a different way for me? Are you taking that feedback and realizing, like, okay, I thought showing up and showing love and being there for her was this way, but she just expressed to me it's not, and I'm going to change and be there for her in this way that's going to be better.
Definitely takes a willingness to even acknowledge it, but then to certainly implement change with that person. So shout out to that. That's amazing. We're in the same age bracket. You talked about graduating from Georgetown in 2012, which means you graduated high school in 2008, as did I. Have you seen the dynamic of relationships change over time? Dynamic of relationships between men and women in general?
Yeah, certainly. I feel like the biggest way I feel like everyone's kind of looking for answers constantly, right? You see a lot of discussion on social media about what a relationship should look like and what it shouldn't. And my thing is just like, live your life, right? And I feel like for me, my life is not feeling pressured to get married. I'm 33. You know, people are like, so when are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids? And it's a journey. I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I'm 100% happy in where I'm at right now. And I feel like sometimes women have more pressure to kind of figure that piece out. Obviously, we have a biological clock if we do want to have children. But yeah, like I'm living on my own time.
How have you been able to silence the pressures? Because I'll openly admit, I may have even been one to succumb to said types of pressure. How did you not succumb to that and be just okay with living life?
Being firm in what I want, like being extremely firm and also being honest and transparent and not being afraid of being different, you know, knowing that the white picket fence and the kind of everyday routine, it's not for me. It's just not for me. Like, I would be miserable. But I know people who are happy, who love that type of lifestyle. I have to just be okay with, like, that's not really what I want, and I don't want to get married and do that, you know? It's just being firm in who you are.
Are there requirements for people that are around you, or are you an open book with anyone that, and not necessarily an open book like full transparency, but like open to allowing anyone into your space, into your network, so to speak?
Mm-hmm. I'm very much open to allowing anyone in, no matter, say, like, financial background or, you know, career aspirations or whatever that may look like, right? So, like, no, you don't have to be a millionaire to be in my presence, you know, nothing like that. However, I do want to be around people who are driven, who are motivated, who want to grow, who want to expand. I thrive in settings like that. I couldn't imagine being around people who just didn't want anything for themselves. I think that's the only requirement.
How quickly do you pick up on ambitious people, people who want more for themselves versus those who are complacent or too comfortable?
First conversation, I could kind of gauge people. And I will say, complacency, we all face it, right?
Sure.
So when I talk about it, it's not necessarily like, yeah, you may have a season where you're complacent and you don't feel motivated. I've been there, right? But it's not a forever thing. When it becomes a forever thing, then it's a problem. You know, if you're never talking about, like, what your next move is, like, what you want to do. Like, I always tell, even my mom and I have this conversation. I feel like when you don't have something to keep your mind busy, like, you fall into, like, the pettiest of things to care about, or you're, you know, associated with drama, or, like, you're just more prone to falling into poverty. Like, keeping your mind active is so important. And I feel like even if you have your complacent period, your complacent seasons, if in the back of your mind you're like, okay, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to just check one thing off my box, I can be on the road with you, you know?
Mm-hmm. You mentioned travel. You mentioned leisure reading in your leisurely reading.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other hobbies of yours?
Anything outdoors. Like, I love being outdoors. I'm a country girl when it comes to that. Like, I will pack my car up with some fishing rods and go down to the lake. I'm going to clean the fish. Like, I'm all for it. I'm not scared of worms, anything like that. I'm that girl. Like, I like boating, you know, I like hiking. I love sports. So, like, I'm a genuine sports lover. Like, I hooped growing up, played volleyball, track and field in high school. Those were my 3 sports. Prior to that, I was on a swim team, a tennis team. I did gymnastics. I played the clarinet. Like, I've done so much. Like, that's just who I am. I love it. I love, like, being outside.
Yeah. Real time outside, though. Real time. And on the record, I'm gonna hold you to a fishing trip. That's my steed. So yeah, we gotta get that in. Do you feel as if there's anything that I haven't asked you up to this point that you feel that you would love to share or pressing to share?
I will say recent experience. So I went back to Mississippi, found out like 2 weeks before the event that we were having a family reunion.
Okay.
It's on my maternal side of the family, the Armstrongs, and went all the way back to my great great grandmother's generation and all of their descendants. I was so pressed to go, even though I found out so last minute or whatever, because I want to know who my family is. Like, obviously, I know my immediate family, but my extended family as well. And I want to know them because that's another motivating reason for me to create generational wealth. Knowing where people are today, how can we help each other and leverage each other's resources to change the trajectory of our family's history? That's something that drives me. So being able to go back, I was able to form some of those relationships with cousins I had never met. We knew each other's parents or grandparents and had never just met because we grew up in different areas of the country and, you know, whatever reason. But so much greatness has even, like, came from that so far that I'm like, okay, next year I want to be on the committee. I want to do this. Like, you know, I want to be all about it. And I think as we think about ourselves and where we want to grow, your community matters. Like, who's in your network matters. And sometimes it's like, take a step back and think like, hey, there's people probably in my family, in my close friend group who I can grow with at the same time, you know? And I think it's like each one teach one. Like, let's bring each other up.
Thank you for sharing that. And I look forward to our next conversation with Miss Taelor Conley Marcel. There we go. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
You too.
Absolutely.